Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Hope everyone's having a good Saturday evening so far. Let's see. We'll get started very shortly as people are coming in. I know a lot of people have started school recently, so thank you everyone for taking time out of your pretty busy Saturday evening to come listen to our speaker series. Okay, then since we're a little bit over time, so I think we're gonna get started. Akil?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Youth AI talk. We're very excited to have you here. Before introducing today's talk, we'd just like to give you a brief overview of what we do at Youth AI and what the speaker series are, because obviously we must have some new members here. So, the Youth AI speaker series, what we do at the Youth AI Lab is we're a youth-led nonprofit U.S. organization dedicated to increasing student-to-expert connections. This webinar is part of a series that we hope to raise awareness around AI among all communities, especially students. We invite experts from academia, industry, and all other factors to share their knowledge and discovery in specific areas of AI. Unlike other technical talks, these talks are tailored towards younger audiences without the technical terms and more focused on providing a more introductory level focus in these areas. Therefore, we hope that they're fun to listen to and that you gain a solid knowledge of this new and exciting technology. Please help spread the word about Youth AI Talks. Thank you for your support of this education and community service initiative. And also, please consider visiting our website that will be put into the chat and sign up to receive announcements for other upcoming events like this one and others. So far, we've hosted 17 talks since the kickoff of the Youth AI Speaker Series, which cover important areas of AI such as efficient AI, graphical AI, cognitive AI, financial AI, as well as various other applications of the technology. Our speakers are held in high regard in their respective fields, be it academia or industry. We have speakers from big players in industries such as Meta and Microsoft, as well as top universities leading the way in artificial intelligence, such as Carnegie Mellon, MIT, UC Berkeley, and Stanford. Replays of these talks are mostly available on the Youth AI YouTube channel, which also will be put into the chat, with the exceptions of a few talks which aren't available on YouTube due to policies. So the last talk, we invited Dr. Irfan Issa from the Georgia Institute of Technology, and he spoke about the role AI plays in journalism, and he covered various important issues such as misinformation and fake news. A replay of this great talk is available on our YouTube channel. Our next talk on September 25th, we'll be inviting Dr. Joelle Pinu. Join us and Dr. Pinu as she shares her expertise discussing the very popular AI research and how that applies to the metaverse.
Apologies, didn't realize I was unmuted. So now to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Leo Grady. Oh, actually, before introducing Dr. Leo Grady, just to briefly go over some logistics of the talk, since we have an audience watching from both our YouTube live stream as well as on Zoom, we'll be doing Q&A through a platform called Slido. And so either you can go to the URL that I am pasting in the chat right now, or you can go to Slido and enter event code 12357. So feel free to submit questions throughout the talk, but we'll only be answering questions in a Q&A session at the end of Dr. Grady's talk. So be sure to stick around for that. And of course, now moving on to introduce Dr. Leo Grady. Dr. Leo Grady is not only a top-notch AI researcher, but also a top CEO in the AI industry who raised over $200 million over 3 years and is currently a CEO in residence with Breyer Capital, an esteemed venture capital firm that has invested in many iconic companies like Facebook, Spotify, Etsy, 23andMe. I'm sure some of those sound very familiar to y'all. And he is an author of 2 books and an industry leader. And prior to Breyer Capital, Dr. Grady was the CEO of Paige, leading the company to become the first company to receive FDA approval for an AI product in pathology. And in 2012, he won the Edison Patent Award with his system and method for multi-label image segmentation. He became a fellow in the American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering, and with 18 years of experience leading and developing advanced ML, AI, computer vision, and diagnostic and digital health technologies, he is internationally recognized as a technology leader in AI for healthcare. So today, we have the brilliant speaker, Dr. Grady, will share his experience and thoughts as an internationally recognized leader in bringing AI to healthcare. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Grady. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Melinda. Let me share my screen here.
Sounds good.
All right. So thank you all for spending your Saturday evening with me or whatever time it is where you are. As Melinda mentioned, I am CEO in residence at Breyer Capital. I've also recently started a new healthcare AI company, but that one is still in stealth mode. So stay tuned for more information on that at a later date. To just fill out a little bit of my career history to go beyond what Melinda had said, I started off in college as an electrical engineering major and then did my PhD in cognitive and neural systems at Boston University almost 20 years ago in AI and computer vision. From there, I went and I joined Siemens, which is a German company building CAT scanners, MRI systems. And there we were working on a variety of different AI applications in healthcare and radiology and bringing those to market very early on in the field. From there, I moved out to the Bay Area to a company called HeartFlow, where we were building a cardiovascular diagnostic test for coronary disease. We brought that test through clinical trial, through FDA approval, Medicare reimbursement, and launched that test throughout North America, Europe, and Japan. And then I moved to New York a few years ago to become CEO of Paige AI, which was a company that spun out of Memorial Sloan Kettering, one of the world's leading cancer centers. And we were building AI applications in pathology, which is the area of medicine where you're taking a piece of tissue out of a patient and looking at that tissue under a microscope. In this case, we were digitizing those slides and building AI applications to support doctors and develop new applications using AI in that field. I also am an inventor on over 300 patents, and as Melinda mentioned, have authored 2 books. So, as we enter the holiday season in a few months, you can keep those in mind. Okay, so what was the arc of my career? If we think about starting off as an electrical engineer, PhD in AI, really working hands-on, building systems, and then moving into management, ultimately into a CEO role. The arc of that career was really around bringing AI to have maximum impact in healthcare. And that has been my driving force throughout my entire career. Early on, I was under the belief that having amazing technology would allow you to transform healthcare and transform lives. And it was only as I went through my career and I understood that it takes more than just amazing technology to really make a significant impact on healthcare. You need to also get many more aspects of the product, the company around that technology. You need to get those other aspects right. Otherwise, you're not going to have the kind of impact that I was pushing for. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology and the products, but I'm also going to talk about some of the other aspects that are involved in really bringing this sort of technology to market to have a major impact on healthcare. Before doing that, first question is, well, why healthcare? Why get into this business in the first place at all? And healthcare really presents a societal challenge for us. All of our lives are going to be impacted by healthcare. Our loved ones are going to be impacted by the healthcare industry. And that the societal demand for healthcare is continuing to grow. This is the number of people over age 65 in the US over time, obviously projected into the future. And you see that the percentage of the US population is only going to get older and grayer over time, which is going to drive more demand for healthcare. Now, this is the US. Similar trends are happening all around the world. And at the same time, the costs for healthcare continue to go up. And so how, as a society, are we going to be able to address these problems? How are we going to deliver more healthcare, deliver on more healthcare demand, and do it at a lower cost so that we can really make healthcare affordable, scalable, and effective for the entire population? Technology plays a big role in that, and I believe AI can play an outsized role on delivering on how to scale healthcare, better quality, lower cost. Sometimes people talk about the triple aim of healthcare, of better care, lower costs, and better patient experience. And I believe AI can really deliver on all three. Now, when we talk about AI, you guys are in the Youth AI Club, so I'm sure you've been thinking about AI and talking about it for a while. I can tell you that in a healthcare world, when people think about AI in healthcare, this is what they think about. They think about a robot doctor that's going to wheel in and really do a lot of the things that a human doctor would do, but just, you know, be a robot and a computer. I think that this is a really poor way to think about the technology and the opportunity that we have, and very limiting on how we can actually apply this technology and deliver value in healthcare. So I would encourage you all to try to banish the robot doctor out of your mind and think of AI really as a technology, not a product, not a robot, but a technology that enables complex pattern recognition and action. And with AI in our normal non-healthcare lives, you can see how AI gets integrated into everything that we do in the modern world without being a robot that wheels in. So for example, AI is all around us when we mail a letter at the post office. An AI system is reading that address and making sure that the letter goes to the right location. When you punch a search into Google, Google is using AI to find the right websites to serve up to you to help you with your search. When Netflix recommends a movie to you, there's an AI system that is behind that recommendation that has learned what you like and recommends movies to you based on those likes. Similarly, with TikTok, AI is trying to identify what videos you're going to like, what videos you're going to continue to watch, and also what ads to serve you. And anytime you unlock your phone with your face, that's an AI system that is able to identify you. So the reason I bring all of this up is just to say that AI is all around us today. It doesn't look like a robot. It doesn't look like the Terminator, but it's all around us today. And it's really integrated and woven into our daily life. And the same is true with healthcare. That robot doctor is not there. It probably will never be there. But AI is increasingly woven into many different technologies in healthcare and opening up a variety of new different opportunities and applications. So to talk about my own history and what I've done specifically, I'll go a little bit deeper in both HeartFlow and Paige. At HeartFlow, what we were trying to do is assess the severity of coronary disease. Coronaries are the blood vessels that feed your heart. And when one of those gets blocked, that's what causes a heart attack, which can result ultimately in death. And so what we did at HeartFlow is the following. We would take a CAT scan of a person's heart, a CT, and we would use AI, computer vision, to find all of the coronary blood vessel center lines. We would then use AI to find all of the plaque, all of the blockages, and the lumen surface. The lumen's the part of the blood vessel that the blood actually flows through. We would use AI to find the rest of the heart, the muscle, the myocardial mass. And then we would build a computational 3D model from that analysis, use computational fluid dynamics, and actually calculate the blood flow through the patient's coronary arteries, which would enable us to assess how much blood was actually able to pass through those blockages and whether or not this person was at high risk for a heart attack. This computational system was able to replace an invasive measurement of blood pressure that was done prior to HeartFlow to measure blood pressure before and after a blockage invasively in the coronary artery. At Paige, we were doing something different. We were focused on pathology, as I mentioned. When you take a tumor or a biopsy out of a patient, you mount it on a slide, you look at it under a microscope. Pathology today is still very microscope based, but with the advent of digital slide scanners that can take very high resolution pictures of pathology slides, it became possible to start applying AI in a meaningful way. However, for us at Paige, one of the challenges that we had was because everyone was microscope based still, we really had to build out the entire infrastructure to even deliver the AI systems, in addition to building out these world-class AI systems themselves. So in fact, we built an interface with all the different scanner manufacturers to upload all of these images into the cloud. We built our own high-performance, high-resolution viewer for these pathology images. We do data management, allow them to manage their case lists and report. And then, of course, all of the AI applications that we built on top of it. So we had to not only build these AI applications, but the entire infrastructure that would allow us to deliver those AI applications and also allow the pathologists in the labs to adopt a fully digital workflow. As Melinda mentioned, part of this, the AI applications themselves, though, were really the centerpiece. And we were the first company to ever receive FDA approval for an AI system in pathology, specifically for prostate cancer. And so Paige Prostate, the system that received the FDA approval, what it would do is basically, when the images were acquired from prostate cancer biopsies, the AI system would scan those slides and highlight for the doctor any areas where the tissue looked suspicious for cancer, so that the pathologist could focus on those areas and make sure they didn't miss anything. And in the study that was published to validate these results, we showed that when pathologists were using Paige Prostate, there was I believe it was a 74% reduction in false negatives, so in missed cancers. And I believe it was a 26% reduction in false positives as well. So in other words, when pathologists were using Paige, they were significantly more effective than when they were not using Paige to do their diagnoses. And although this technology was trained on an enormous number of slides that we digitized in collaboration with Memorial Sloan Kettering, it wasn't, as I mentioned, it wasn't just the AI system or even the entire deployment mechanism. We also had to pioneer new ways to communicate this information to doctors. So for example, if we just put this bullseye, this crosshair on the locations of the tissue where prostate cancer was detected, that bullseye could obscure the tissue. It could make it such that the doctor couldn't really see the cancer. And so what we did instead was areas where cancer was potentially detected were left alone, and then areas where the system was not finding any trace of cancer were faded out, so that the pathologist could have an unobstructed view of the areas that could be cancerous without having, arrows and bullseyes and others things obscuring their vision. Now, of course, they could toggle on, this faded out area, and they could look at everything. But what this did was this was an innovation that allowed us to better communicate the results of the AI to these doctors as well. It wasn't, although I'm talking about HeartFlow and Paige, I want to point out there are a lot of companies now that are building AI applications in pathology or in medicine. This is a photograph from a couple of years ago at the big radiology meeting in Chicago every year. This is the section of the vendor floor, of the company floor, that was just focused on AI companies selling AI applications to radiologists. And this area has only continued to grow over the last few years. This is a pre-COVID picture. Now, how is AI getting applied in healthcare? I think of it really in 4 different buckets that I'm going to go through and give you a few examples of. One is to automate or support diagnoses. Another is to use AI to automate manually intensive tasks at scale. Another application of AI is as an enabling technology for a new medical device, or to allow or to use AI to do things that today can only be done with other pieces of hardware or chemistry or sequencing or something like that. So I'm going to go through each of these and give you a few examples. So this idea of automating or supporting diagnoses with AI is as close as we can get conceptually to the concept of the robot doctor that I was telling you to forget. There are some applications that are in this direction. What I just showed you at Paige is an application that's in the direction of supporting a pathologist to help them get to a better result for their patients. It was never intended to replace a pathologist. It was really a system that would work in conjunction with the pathologist to produce better diagnoses and more accuracy for their patients, and make sure that they really didn't miss anything. There are other companies in this space that are doing something similar. Iterative Scopes is building AI applications in colonoscopies. Clearly is building AI applications in cardiology and cardiac CAT scans. Viz.ai for stroke detection, Arteris for cardiac analysis. Optellum is working on AI applications for lung nodule identification. Timpa Health for ear assessment from images through an imaging device in your ear. And then, of course, these large radiology players, Siemens, Philips, GE, are also building AI applications to plug into their MRI machines or CAT scanners or whatnot. Watson Health is maybe one of the most high-profile applications efforts to really provide some sort of automated or supported diagnoses that unfortunately ran into some challenges. Now, there's another variant of that application area for AI, which is to use AI not to support a diagnosis, but to automate manually intensive tasks at scale. So this is less like a robot doctor, more like a robot nurse or a technician or something like that, where you have a system which can do a lot of manual work, but faster, at more scale, and really enable the doctors to be more effective. There's a book a few years ago by Eric Topol called Deep Medicine, where he really made the argument that this sort of application of AI can free up doctors to do less paperwork and spend more time caring for their patients. So there are examples like Atropo Health, which is scaling up a lot of research functions for hospitals, Suki, which is building AI applications for filling out medical records and scribing, Soli Therapeutics, which is really scaling and massively automating a lot of drug discovery applications. And these are some areas in which AI is being used to automate manually intensive tasks, but at scale, to really deliver value into the healthcare system. Now, there's another class of applications here where AI is being used to enable as an enabling technology for a new medical device. Oftentimes, these companies don't even talk about AI, but AI is essential for making the new technologies work. So what are some examples here? Subtle Medical found a way to speed up MRI reconstruction with AI that allows MRI acquisitions to be much faster and to allow you to basically scan more patients more easily and get fantastic images out of it as a result. Intuitive Surgical with the Da Vinci robot, they have a variety of different AI applications that help guide the surgery, help the surgeons have better control over their systems. Metavis also is a surgical application. Butterfly was able to build a new low-cost ultrasound device using AI as core technology. InHeart for doing invasive catheterization procedures. Psionic is a sleeve that you wear for people who have neurodegenerative disease and can really use AI to help them walk better. So again, these are not robot doctors, these are not robot nurses. This is really, the AI is really under the hood to enable new types of applications and new opportunities, new medical devices. And there's a fourth group that I think of, which is AI for performing new tasks and sometimes replacing hardware. So what I was showing you at HeartFlow was replacing an invasive catheterization by being able to do all of that computationally from a cardiac CAT scan and using AI as an enabling technology for doing that. Similarly at Paige, I was showing you the Paige prostate application, but we also worked on other applications where we could use AI to look at a tumor and say, what's the likelihood that drug X is going to be effective for treating this tumor? And with enough data, there were many times in which we were able to say that we could accurately predict when a drug was going to be more effective or less effective for treating a certain tumor in a certain individual. But this is not something that a pathologist can do by looking at it. This is really a much more complicated system that really goes beyond what the human doctor is able to do in this circumstance. Neurolite is another company that we work with at Breyer Capital that is building AI applications to detect Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, MS early by using a variety of different computer vision technologies that they've built that are really looking at eye tracking. Biocognitive is looking at building sepsis applications using AI and a variety of different blood markers. Perspective Diagnostics is replacing liver biopsies through a variety of different AI applications applied to MRI. So once again, these are our AI central companies that were not automating diagnoses or supporting diagnosis or automating manual tasks. They're really, what they're doing is using AI to do things that we couldn't do before, or that we could only do before by using really expensive hardware or chemistry, or sometimes not at all. For example, in the case of Neurolite, we don't have a very good way of diagnosing and detecting Alzheimer's and Parkinson's early. Now, for any of these AI applications, you need some sort of access to data. It's not just enough to have great AI technology, you need to be able to access the kind of data that will allow you to build this technology. And there are a few ways in which this gets done in the real world. You can either partner with a hospital or a clinic, get data with them. You can provide a service where you're basically trading that service for data access to build applications from the data that passes through that service. You can have a direct-to-consumer application where you're getting data directly from a consumer. So, you know, an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring, you can collect that data directly from the consumer and build AI applications on top of that as well. Or sometimes there are public data sets that can be leveraged to some degree in order to be able to build these AI applications. Regardless of how you get access to this data and build your AI applications, data privacy and security are extraordinarily important. This is healthcare data, it's very sensitive. And there's a level of laws that you have to comply with. In the US, we have to comply with HIPAA, which is a privacy measure that says you really can't disclose people's names or addresses or social security numbers unless somebody really needs to know that. And then in Europe, there's something called the GDPR that was passed a few years ago, which is a broad-based privacy regulation that requires companies to provide certain privacy capabilities and securities to consumers whose data that they are entrusted with. Now, these are laws. So if you do not comply with these laws, you're breaking the law. You could be fined or even worse. However, the flip side of privacy is also security. If you have a very high privacy system, but it's easy to hack, it doesn't really matter if you have invested a lot in privacy because people are going to be able to get access to all of that data by hacking you effectively. So security is the other side of the coin. There are very few laws around security requirements. However, there are a number of standards out there that are used typically, things like high trust or ISO 27000, SOC 2, FedRAMP. These are all voluntary, but they are strict security requirements where you get audited by a third party and you can really represent that you meet these different security standards. So data privacy and security is extremely important in healthcare. Now, one of the things that you see sometimes particularly in healthcare, describing AI or discussing AI is a concept that AI is overhyped, or maybe it doesn't work as well as people thought or people promised. And so there's a variety of different stories like this. AI is long hyped in radiology, but doesn't really work. It has a long way to go before doctors can really trust it. A plea for realism and accuracy. And all of this, these articles, basically argue that AI doesn't work as well as it is promised or it is advertised. And of course, different AI systems are built by different companies. They have very different levels of performance and accuracy. But there is certainly this feeling out there because some companies have not done a very good job in how they not only market their technology, but really in how they build it and how they validate it. And I just want to talk about that for a moment because even outside of healthcare, we see this concept of bias in AI systems. And it usually, when we see that concept brought up outside of healthcare, it looks like this: a system that would identify potential people who are arrested as high risk or low risk, and because of racial biases in the AI system, that AI systems have been shown in many cases to identify certain groups of people as higher risk than other groups of people based on these racial, ethnic, socioeconomic biases. despite the fact that the facts are really in a go in a different direction. And because of this concept of bias in AI outside of healthcare, we see it also in healthcare as well. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with poor validation, overfitting, which is something you may have heard of if you're studying AI or looking into it. But I actually think healthcare is further ahead than other areas of applying AI in overcoming bias. And it's not because people in healthcare are smarter or more enlightened than people outside of healthcare, but really just because the stakes are so high. And these biases have been recognized a long time ago, even outside of AI. So for example, there are books that have been written showing that drugs, not so long ago, were tested on more men, for example, than women. And when those drugs went onto market, they didn't work as well for women. Sometimes they actually harmed women. And it was because of a bias in how that data was collected and how those devices, those drugs were tested and validated. And it's not just a gender bias that's been observed in medicine, but also racial, ethnic, socioeconomic biases. But because these biases have been recognized and pointed out a little bit, I would say, earlier in medicine than they have outside of medicine, many steps have been taken to really ensure validation that takes into account proper sampling, proper validation in healthcare that can help us avoid these biases. And so we have the FDA, which will really ensure that new technology gets sampled and with an appropriate patient population before a technology can be approved to be marketed and used out in the world. So when AI is held to the same standard, I think a lot of the challenges that we see, both outside of healthcare and that some of those headlines are addressing in healthcare, go away, because proper sampling of a population, proper validation, proper development really can go a long way for eliminating those biases and ensuring the performance of the technology that we build. There's one last topic I wanted to just touch on really quickly, which is, AI is a new technology, or at least a new concept in healthcare. And so when you talk about how do you actually market that technology, how do you price it, how do you message it, has been a real challenge for companies that are really investing millions and millions of dollars in building amazing AI systems. Then you actually have to make those products successful if they're going to have the kind of impact on healthcare that we're attempting to build. So this messaging, marketing, pricing is an essential issue that doesn't get a lot of attention in the AI literature, but I wanted to touch on it here. And I think it really goes to this concept of perception of value. The perceived value of a product is, if it's higher than the cost of the product, people are going to buy it. If the perceived value of a product is lower than the cost, they're not going to buy it. And the perception of value, the perceived value, is driven by a number of things. It can be driven by the brand of the company, the data, the testimonials, pricing, scarcity, urgency, and so on. But I think the one challenge that we suffer from in AI is that a big part of perceived value is people want to take a technology and put it in a mental bucket of similar products and technologies. No one would expect a new cancer drug to sell for 25 cents, right? But you might expect, a new Band-Aid to sell for 25 cents, right? And you don't need to know anything about the data or the scarcity or the proof or anything like that. You just know that drugs cost a lot, Band-Aids do not. And so the perception of value of how you think about AI and what are similar products and technologies matters a lot into how you describe the value, how you communicate the value, how you price and market these technologies. And so I just want to give you one example to help you understand what I mean here. This is something that we struggled with at HeartFlow. I told you what the product did. We took a CAT scan, we used AI, we extracted the coronary arteries, we calculated blood flow, and we provided this incredible information that would allow doctors to know whether a patient was at high risk for heart attack and whether or not they needed a stent. But how do you describe this technology? What mental bucket is a doctor going to put it into, or an insurance company, or Medicare, or a chief financial officer at a hospital? And there are really two choices. One choice, you can say, okay, well, this is it's taking a CT, a CAT scan, and it's doing some AI software on top of it. And so you could think of it as post-processing of an image. And post-processing is a known category. It is something that's low value. It's typically included with like a CAT scanner purchased for free. It's usually not paid for. And it is, the value of post-processing is very low. However, there's another way to look at this technology, which is a replacement for an invasive procedure, a surgery, a cath lab with a pressure wire. In that case, this is a very high value technology. Cath lab procedures are extremely expensive and dangerous to the patient. They get highly reimbursed. And in the studies that we did at HeartFlow, we showed that the value, the savings by using HeartFlow on every patient was about $3,500 per patient per use. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that the same technology, because there's really no existing category, communicating the value of it is really essential to how the technology gets treated, how it gets adopted, how it gets paid for. HeartFlow, Paige, many other AI companies have raised millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to build these technologies, just like a drug company does. And if that technology is not valued, then, and yet it takes that kind of investment to build these technologies, there's no way companies are going to be able to afford to build world-class technology and bring it to market. So how we communicate that value, how we provide a comparator for doctors, hospitals, insurance companies is absolutely essential to getting this paid for and to getting it valued appropriately. We faced a similar issue with Paige. For sake of time, I'm just going to kind of blow through that and just come to my conclusions, which are the following. Working in healthcare and technology, it's enormously important. It's enormously impactful. It's very challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding. AI is all around us in products we use every day, even though we don't recognize it. Same is true in healthcare. And if people are waiting for a robot doctor to wheel in, they're going to be waiting a long time. Just the same way that AI is outside of healthcare without having robots whizzing around everywhere. And really importantly, that truly impacting healthcare, changing people's lives with AI technology requires so much more than just amazing technology. It does require the amazing technology, but you also have to have amazing design, experience, engineering, deployment mechanisms. You need to work with the FDA appropriately. You need to market and message that technology and price it, support it. You have to work with the insurance companies and Medicare. So many aspects of the business, of the technology, of the product are important to really driving that level of impact in healthcare. So it's not just the technology. It's really, you need to have a much broader picture of how to get all of this right in order to really deliver high value into healthcare. With that, I'm going to stop and take questions. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grady. That was fantastic. I think especially with the healthcare industry, it's quite literally a life-changing field, right? Since in our daily lives, what we eat, what we do, the diseases, right, like cancer, so on and so forth. I think quite literally with I thought it was really interesting that you would really emphasize the fact that because I think quite commonly one of the fears as artificial intelligence is on the rise is that AI will come and replace many human workers and their jobs, right? But I think it's really important that you're emphasizing that instead of coming in and replacing the already existing human workers that are here, that AI is really just coming in to help us really work with us and to really make our jobs easier as well and to help us do them better rather than to replace us entirely. But
And in some cases also enable new capabilities that we didn't
right,
have before. So it's not an issue of replacing at all. I mean, unlocking your phone with face recognition is not something that replaces anybody, but it's a new capability that just didn't exist before, similar to what we did with HeartFlow.
definitely, it's fascinating, and I think definitely we have a lot of questions here on the Slido, so I think we should get to them. So just the first question from Anonymous. We have someone asking, what are some examples of how AI might look in healthcare in the future, perhaps maybe 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I think that AI will not look like a robot doctor wheeling around. I think it's going to be embedded into a whole variety of products and opportunities that allow us to deliver better healthcare, lower costs, better patient experience. Um, Certainly with the rise of with COVID and telemedicine, more and more available digital data on patients. I think there are new opportunities that allow us to really personalize medicine in a much more effective way. Um, but AI is not going to look like any one thing. It's going to look like a variety of really amazing and novel, life-changing technologies that can truly impact how we care for patients and how we interact with physicians.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually agree with that. I think making use of this technology can really expand on, the current state of not just American healthcare, but healthcare systems across the globe. The next question is, how would you recommend getting involved in AI in healthcare as a youth?
My new company is opening up some internships. I don't know if maybe not middle school and high school, but certainly a little bit with some intense biology background. Um, there are opportunities out there. I think, certainly the two key areas to invest time in is computer science and biology and medicine. So if you're interested in moving in the direction of AI and healthcare, I would really recommend building your skill set in those two areas, looking for internship opportunities, and especially as you ultimately go into college and beyond, you have more and more opportunities to get involved in really exciting projects. And you got to show up, you got to put the time in, and you have to find amazing people to work with.
Definitely. I think especially with that, of course, high schoolers aren't usually seen in internships, especially in the professional field. But I think that for the students we have watching, I think if this is something you're interested in, if you're interested in looking into sort of a career path in AI and healthcare, I think that being a high schooler should not necessarily stop you from just going ahead and asking, right? Of course. And I think especially with internships, the real life experience that one can obtain from actually working within a company that is moving forward with a product that is trying to change something in healthcare, I think it's a very good experience. It's very different from what you can learn from a textbook or from a classroom environment. So definitely agree with what Dr. Grady is saying about sort of course, you have to focus on certain areas, like for instance, biology and computer science, but also trying to put yourself out there and experiencing the things that are already being made, and sort of trying to have one foot inside the door, so to speak. And I think for the next question, just wanted to ask, we have Anonymous asking, what do you think are I know you talked about a lot of applications in healthcare, but what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing the implementation of AI in healthcare?
A lot of people, if you ask that question to most people in the field, what they would say is data availability. That what we really need are large centralized data repositories in order to deliver healthcare. I actually think that is certainly necessary. I don't think it's the biggest challenge. I think what the challenges are finding a target population where you can really gather enough data from different areas, from different hospitals, from different patient populations, putting the right data together, and then validating your system effectively over a sufficient population. That is generally one of the bigger challenges. It's very easy to overfit, to fool yourself into thinking that your technology works much better than it does. But doing it right, doing it carefully is is both a psychological challenge, but also a technological challenge. One of the other areas in which there are challenges is in bridging the gap between people who really understand what the technology is capable of and also what the medical needs are and that understanding. Because if you go to a doctor and you say, what do you want AI to do? They will come up with a whole range of ideas that are, somewhat incremental onto what they're doing today. And if you go to an AI researcher and you ask, what do you want to do in healthcare? They really don't have a very good understanding of how healthcare works or how their technology can impact the field. So trying to bridge the gap between, actual healthcare and doctors and the technologists and the scientists who really understand what the AI is capable of is one of the biggest challenges of, finding that right marriage between the needs of the medical community and what the technology is really capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question. So how do you see AI impacting the accessibility of healthcare? Do you think it'll democratize the space or improve affordability, or if you can just give us some insight in that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So certainly affordability, by delivering better care at scale, more preventative care. Those are all things that are going to, or more automated care too. Those are all things that are going to lower costs and increase accessibility. I think there's another piece too, which is personalization. One of the things that we see in AI outside of healthcare is this idea of mass customization. For all of you that have a TikTok feed, when you bring it up, you're going to see different videos than each one of you are going to see a variety of different videos. Why? It's because you all have different interests, different tastes that TikTok has learned to feed you the kind of videos that are going to be appealing to you. As that concept of mass customization starts to apply to healthcare, it allows us to address populations that are less well represented, less well served, really by using the technology to customize for them on an individual basis without having a one-size-fits-all healthcare that may benefit more of a majority, but less of different underrepresented populations.
Definitely. And I think that touching on this topic is definitely something we can't forget when discussing healthcare. Of course, there are many very powerful solutions that are out there, but it's also very important to make sure that these solutions are also available for everyone as well on a large scale. So as for the next question, I actually personally think this question is very interesting because it's something I'm interested in and have had experience in. I know it's not necessarily specific to sort of the heart devices or cancer diagnosis, but it is a part of healthcare. So I'm wondering, how do you think AI could help with mental health care and psychiatry? I'm wondering if you've sort of seen any examples in your work as well.
Yes, for sure. So there are two sides, right? There are neurodegenerative disorders, things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and those are somewhat more medical. But I think the question was really more about how do we better treat depression or anxiety or improve therapy effectiveness. And there are a number of companies that are working on those sorts of applications. So for example, here in New York, there's a company called Spring Health, and what they are doing is really matching people who have, who are seeking therapy to personalized plans, to therapists that are going to be most effective for them as individuals, who can build therapeutic strategies that are going to be more effective for them in a way that is much more personalized than just showing up and being assigned a therapist out of a pool. And so that's one level in which AI can be used for helping people with psychological challenges. There are other ways where you can use AI. There's a company that I got to know where they were using data from your phone when you go out a lot, when you're opening your phone more, the kind of apps you have on your phone, all of these different things where they could basically predict how depressed somebody was just by looking at the data of what they were doing on their phone and where they were going and how they were going. They could accurately detect depression and predict that. And so that sort of real-time mass prediction, understanding, quantification, standardization of something like depression is really only now possible due to the data streams that we're generating as we go through our digital lives. So I think there are just enormous opportunities in mental health as well to really measure, quantify, and improve the therapy for individuals that need it.
Definitely. And I think I just wanted to add something before we ask the next question. I think it's also really interesting. Another thing, especially since it looks like we're talking more about cognitive behavioral therapy. So looking at depression, anxiety, treating those with AI. There are also mental health chatbots acting as sort of therapists. There are some examples of companies like Woebot and Wysa.
Sure.
Fantastic examples. And I think one thing that's very important with sort of, it might seem interesting since usually when we think of therapy, we think of human to human interaction, right? And so the chatbot AI aspect may be a little surprising to some people, but I think it's also very important because especially there's a lot of stigma surrounding mental health at times, and having sort of 24/7 access to help, as well as having it be completely sort of anonymous almost, really sort of conquers the stigma of mental health that might be in some communities. So it definitely allows more people to have access to this technology and to really take care of their mental health, as well as helping them get through their daily lives, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's a really great point, Melinda, that there are a lot of areas of healthcare that are stigmatized for one reason or another, and people don't necessarily feel comfortable going to a doctor and standing in front of them and talking about certain issues. And so because of that, embarrassment or stigma, they just try to muscle through those issues as much as they can. But when they have the opportunity to interact with a computer or a system, or even if it's a person where they're just typing in and they don't have to talk to them or go to their office, that opens up new opportunities to really address some of these issues where people might not seek help because they were too embarrassed or felt uncomfortable doing it, but where they really did need the help and could really benefit from it.
Just wanted to ask, do you see, so you've gone a lot in depth about how AI can have a tremendous impact on healthcare systems. Someone asked, are there disadvantages to AI in healthcare?
Well, AI is a technology. So, any technology, if it is not used appropriately or if it's used, it's matched with something that it's not very good at, obviously there would be a risk that you build a not very good product. The governing bodies that we have, at least in the US, FDA in particular, I think they do a really excellent job of regulating, validating, and enabling technologies that are proven to be safe and effective to get on the market. And so I think that there is less of a danger of a technology that is snake oil or potentially dangerous of getting on the market, getting that sort of FDA approval or clearance, because of the rules and the evaluation process that we have in place. Now, of course, I mean, things go wrong. There are recalls. I mean, there are all sorts of issues that you can have with any sort of product or any sort of technology, and AI is no different. I don't think there's anything that's uniquely dangerous or worrisome about AI and technology in healthcare.
Definitely. I think it's really important to know that AI, especially, even if it's made with the correct intentions, of course, it depends on how we use the tool, right? So, of course, in the hand of the user, it can become, anything in a way, sort of. So I think that's something really important to pay attention to, that it's not necessarily the technology that's controlling anything, and it depends on how we utilize it. And I think this is a bit of a segue. It's similar to the last question that was asked, but more on the ethics. So I'm wondering if you could sort of talk about the ethics behind AI in healthcare. Are there any snags that you can think of?
Well, the one issue that gets talked about a lot as far as ethics and AI in healthcare is the use of data, right? So healthcare data is very private, it's very personal, it's very sensitive. Somebody may not want anyone to know that they're HIV positive, for example, or that they have a certain disease or they're dying of cancer. And so this data is very sensitive. And yet, in order to build a variety of different technologies, not just AI, but in particular AI, it's important to use significant amounts of data so that you can both develop and validate that the technology works effectively. So sometimes there's a view of a tension between privacy and rights of the individual patient to keep their data private, and the needs of technologies that benefit all of us to use that data for development and validation. I think that for the most part, there are ways to harmonize both, because it's absolutely true that healthcare data is sensitive, and it's important that we take it really seriously and that we protect it both from a privacy standpoint and a security standpoint. At the same time, we all benefit from technologies being developed, trained, validated on as large a population as possible if it's going to be maximally effective. And so I think the optimal way to harmonize both of those needs of privacy and new technologies is really to anonymize data in effective ways where that anonymized data or de-identified data can be used to effectively build new systems, but in a way that doesn't damage or injure or jeopardize anyone's privacy or rights. But that's the area that I see most often discussed in terms of ethics and AI in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as we know, you've been a founder of multiple successful companies in this venture. So, just a question: what do you think are the most important factors in building a successful product that takes AI and applies it to healthcare?
I think it's really having a good understanding of the 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 need that you're addressing, the value that you're providing. It's in some sense it's like any startup. You need a clear value proposition. You have to identify who you're building it for and what the essential features that you're building that product are for. And I think in the case of AI, the challenges that go beyond that are how you effectively get data, how you validate effectively, and how you bring it to market fast enough that you can start to generate revenue to sustain the business. And that's a challenge in healthcare in general. Even if you build a new stent or a new heart pump or something like that, because proving safe and effective is so hard and takes so much time and requires data and money, trying to get these technologies into the market is challenging. The benefit of AI is you can build it much faster, you can validate it faster because it's all software, but you still need to be able to get enough data, and you still need to take the validation and the regulatory process seriously and do the trials, do the studies that prove not only clinical effectiveness, but health economics effectiveness. And so I think that one of the traps that I see startups in AI and healthcare fall into is that people get enamored with the technology and what the technology can do, and don't have a full appreciation for what it takes to bring that technology to market, and underinvest in other areas, and are frequently surprised that it's as challenging and as slow as it can be at times.
Definitely. I think that's a really good question, especially for those who might be interested in potentially starting their own startup in healthcare in the future. So I really appreciate that response. And so I'd like to ask just one more question. So it's a bit similar to the question that was asked earlier in regards to, and more specifically, how a high schooler or as a student, how they can get into the healthcare field and AI specifically at such a young age. I'd just like to ask as we close out here, unfortunately, but I'm wondering, do you have any words of advice for high schoolers or just young people in general who are interested in artificial intelligence? Do you have any recommendations on where they start, how they can learn more? What are your thoughts?
What I would say is, if you have that kind of talent, that drive, that motivation to be joining tonight on a Saturday in August, and interest in AI and at a high school level, at a middle school level, make sure that you really take your talent and your interest and do something important with it, and do something meaningful with it, and do something that is going to be challenging and rewarding and impactful. Because I've seen a lot of AI jobs out there. I've seen incredibly talented people do jobs that, frankly, I feel are pretty boring, and some of them are important. But, they're products that I use, but there are real problems that we need to solve out there. And healthcare is extraordinarily important. It's motivating. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now, and I still get excited every morning to get up and to work in these problems, because they are so meaningful and they impact all of us. So if you have your North Star as doing something impactful and meaningful and challenging, then just go for it. I would just really keep that impact and meaningfulness as your North Star as you build your careers out.
Right. And I think for those who are interested in how they can sort of get started. I think you're already getting started by taking time out of your Saturday evening, wherever you are, to really come in and sort of dial in and listen to experts such as Dr. Grady talk about what's really happening and how this technology can be used. I think especially if you're already here, that's already a really good start. So definitely. And of course, there are also resources that are available out there if you're interested in really getting started in the nitty-gritty courses, for instance, like coding, for instance. That's one aspect, but of course also involving yourself in the real world application, like for instance, looking for internships is one way, or talking to other industry members of academia is also another way. And we also have resources up on our website at youthAIlab.org. If you are interested as a beginner or even as an intermediate or advanced member, a student who is interested in pursuing AI, that's definitely some really good things to check out. But unfortunately, looks like our time is coming to a close, regretfully. I just like to thank everyone for coming today. I really hope that everyone was able to take something away, because I know, especially as a co-host for these talks, it's really amazing hearing all these different people from such as Dr. Grady, right? Experts in their own field. And I think it's definitely a treasure to have. So, and also thank you, Grady, for taking time out of your Saturday evening to come speak to our audience. Everyone here really appreciates you taking your time to help support the community of aspiring young programmers or entrepreneurs. So, and for everyone who maybe wants to learn some more, we'll have a transcript up later on our website. So we'll also email you guys the link to that once it's written. And yeah, definitely keep an eye out for the next Youth AI Lab talk on our Eventbrite. And thank you everyone for coming today.
Thank you for having me. And I should say, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or connect. I'm here to support all of you.
Definitely. And I know some questions weren't answered today, unfortunately, but Dr. Grady, if you do have time, maybe in your free time while you're enjoying some coffee, if someone has questions, maybe if you wouldn't mind when they reach out on LinkedIn.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you everyone for coming today. And thank you, Dr. Grady, for offering his time.
Good
Hope
night,
everyone has a fantastic rest of their day. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, and for those who are still in the meeting, we also do have a AI competition that is coming up for Youth AI Lab's birthday as a celebration. Our birthday was last Saturday. So happy birthday, Youth AI Lab. A bit belated, but if you can see the form that Akil sent in the chat, if you are interested in participating, we just like to see how we can best prepare this program for you guys. It'll be happening in the wintertime in January. So, and thank you, Mary, for saying happy belated birthday to Youth AI Lab. So yeah, if you're interested, please fill out the form that Akil has sent in the chat. We'd really appreciate it. But otherwise, thank you everyone for coming. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their evening. Thank you everyone for coming out. We'll see you guys hopefully at the next Youth AI Lab talk on September 25th with Dr. Joel. Thank you, everyone.